my theme music. Every good hero should have some. This is the way.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Coxinator, and you're watching CoxinatorProductions here on YouTube. And today, we have a special guest with us. I know this cat through Twitter. That's how we met. I know him as Adam. You know him as MainstreamDissident. He's got a new YouTube channel out, which I'm going to put the link to in the description about it. I also have his Twitter handle down there. And Mainstream, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's up? I am doing good tonight, and I am glad to be a part of the CoxinatorProductions episode today, man. It's good to be on.
For real, yo. What's up? All right, so we talked about how we're going to do this. The only thing we talked about was how we're going to start. And it's not how we start, but it's how we finish. We're going to finish strong. We're going to start strong. My question to get things started tonight, Adam, is you are the mainstream dissident. What are you dissenting against the mainstream about, and how do you define what mainstream is?
Okay, so we'll start with the latter half of your question first. Just real briefly, I consider mainstream to be anything that the televised media, a dying media, but televised media is allowed to say or is pushing. So the mainstream being Con Inc., and you have the Democratic Party, what they are pretty much talking about. Yes, they might talk about the extreme right or the extreme left, but their narratives that they're giving to the public, that is the mainstream. I am dissenting, not against all narratives. I am right-leaning. I come from conservatism. That is my home since I've been 8 years old. During the 9/11 attacks, I was a diehard conservative. But the actual thought behind the name of my show was I am trying to bring those dissenting views that I now hold into the mainstream. It's almost like pushing the Overton window a little bit, but sort of capturing minds of guys who I like to call, hey, they're on the fence. They're almost all the way there. They can almost see everything I do. And we're trying to bring them into the mainstream. We're trying to, I don't want to say take over the mainstream, but that's basically a high overview of the thought process there.
Understood. So you like what you believe and what you think and your ideologies and political and religious thoughts and everything to become the mainstream in America.
At least for the right wing, if there will be such a thing in the future of my grandchildren, yes. Yeah,
because instantly as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about that South Park episode, when they put the big corporations out of business, and then the little guys step up, and then they start building, and then it reemerges as that mainstream consensus again, and it becomes the beast all over again. Do you think that could happen, or do you believe we'll always have this leftist opposition in America?
We most definitely will always have that leftist opposition, but I've thought about that. I've played the tape the whole way through. Even in saying that's a good analogy. And it's like, okay, am I trying to eventually become the very thing that I'm against? And then are there going to be people in the future that are like, dude, Adam, he's not right wing enough for me. Like I have thought about that before, man.
Yeah. I could see that, because there definitely is a litmus test on the right anyway. With the left, anything goes. There's not really any rules other than you can't be a Trump supporter, you can't vote Republican, you can't support their causes. But everything else pretty much goes. With the right, though, it's like we have boundaries that are clearly defined as what a conservative right-winger would be. What would you say is like a couple of the pillars of what we believe on the right, and like for you is a litmus test to see who's with you and who's against you?
Okay, that's not that that's too broad of a question, but I'll try to answer it succinctly in segments here. So
we'll get it dialed in.
The pillars of conservatism whenever I was growing up were against gay marriage, we are against abortion, we are against, I mean, transgenderism wasn't really even a topic of discussion, but
Never.
we were against it. And then as I got older, it seems that the Conservative Party has just been like, okay, well, now a Democrat's in office, here comes gay marriage. And then the conservatives never fight to take it away. They just say, well, we got to conserve what we have. And then the leftists get another victory. And then the conservatives are like, well, I guess we got to conserve what we have. And I've just seen this in my lifetime happen again and again and again. And I'm 32, about to be 33 here at the beginning of next year. And it's just been cyclical. It's like the left has victories. Well, we gotta, I guess this is what we're conserving now. So guys who I consider my team, the friend enemy distinction that I've talked about on my show before.
Okay.
My friends, they have those traditional values that I derive that morality, that objective morality from the Bible. And that's kind of where my morality lies. I might have a little bit of a mental gymnastic view of it, which we may find out later. However, that's I think that answers your question. What do you think?
Well, certainly. I mean, if somebody comes to me and says that they support gay marriage, for instance, I kind of instantly know that this isn't a friend. Like, this isn't now, that doesn't mean that I think less of them as a human being, or that I wouldn't help them if they were in trouble. Because certainly helping our enemies and blessing those who curse you is a Christian ethic that we live by. So it has nothing to do with hate or anything like that. It's just there's right and there's wrong. And when you start siding with wrong, that's the slippery slope that's going to go from moving the goalposts from gay marriage to transsexuals to gay adoption to sodomy becoming legal. Just today we're talking about this Netflix show that's pushing transgenderism on 7-year-olds on Netflix.
They're coming for your kids.
Right. So it's like once you let evil in, evil will continue to grow because it seriously is like cancer.
I agree fully. And correct me if I'm wrong, like when you say evil, I've seen your show before. You are good with Christianity. Maybe I'm not saying it right. You are a Christian through and through. I can tell from the way you say, or what you say. I can tell the way you present yourself. I can tell you by the way you present your content. When you say evil, I think you mean the same thing as I do. Evil means going against the direct natural order that God has put into place, not only in reality, but also in Scripture.
Absolutely. I don't let my politics determine what my faith is. I make my faith determine what my politics are. And that is my litmus test of like what's right and what's wrong. That's how I know how to vote. That's discernment. And more importantly, that's being judgmental of things around me and the things that we notice. Okay? So with that word in mind, noticing, what kind of things are you noticing lately since Trump has been elected? And we've had pretty much a tumultuous month, starting with the slaying of I cannot remember her name for the life of me. God help me.
The Irina Zarutska.
Irina Zarutska. That's the one. With her slaying, and then we've had multiple shootings. A lot of them, of course, we never even hear about all of the Christian attacks all across the world, really, particularly in France, as they're burning down churches like they're going out of style, and they are. What kind of things are you noticing lately?
Besides the attacks on, it seems, and maybe I'm biased because guess what? I'm white, but it seems if you are white and you are Christian in America, you are enemy number one. You are enemy number one because you're Christian, and Christianity. Oh, you guys are believing in fairy tales. You guys are whack jobs. The list goes on there. That's a story old as time. But then to put this evil on white people who created this civilization in this empire in which we now have all these creature comforts that are feeding us, to say that we're evil colonizers and we're slave owners, etc. I don't know about you, and this may seem, cliche to say, but I've never owned a slave. I've never colonized anyone. I've never, wiped out a people group to take land. But to say colonize means to go somewhere and improve the civilization. Yes, there's bloodshed back in those days. You know what? It was a violent time, much more violent than today. But yeah, I think being white and being Christian, that makes you enemy number one, dude. And I've noticed a shift away from Christianity and away from, like, it's even if you're proud of being white, oh, that's even worse. You're white first off. If you're proud of being white, well, shame on you. We're gonna fire you for that.
Well, I can tell you this, Adam. I've never necessarily been proud to be white, because to me it's like I can't help it. This is how I was born. I didn't earn it. I didn't work for it. I'm a white guy, so I have no sense of pride as if like I've achieved something. I am something. So in that sense, I don't have pride. What I do have is the same sense of what you're talking about, is that because I am who I am being discriminated against, by these policies, these DEI, woke, anti-white policies that simply come down on me because of who I am. Now, in that sense, I don't have a sense of pride. What I have is a sense of, well, I got to get together with these other guys who happen to be born white, and we need to get together here, and we need to stand up, because as white people, we're being killed on buses. We're being killed on college campuses. We're being denied jobs. Okay, there's so many issues that are going on here because of our skin color, and that's it. Now, they'll talk about slavery. They'll talk about, the oppression. They'll bring in the white privilege word and all these other things. How would you answer that, and what do you think about what I just said?
What I think you just said, you're spot on. You're spot on, man. The white privilege, that strikes a nerve with me, because I grew up in a trailer park. We lived in a trailer for my formative years, and then it wasn't until I was 12 that we actually moved to a house, thanks to my parents working hard and actually, seeking out that improvement. And I've been ran through the ringer, made horrible decisions in life, but due to seeking Christ and due to hard work and determination, I was able to make it out of that. I'm not saying, hey, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, but that's what I say my white privilege would be, is that I had the mental fortitude to help myself out. But I don't think that that's exclusive to white people.
Right.
I think there may be, depending on your genetic background, and I don't think it's exclusive to white people. However, on your genetic background, you do have more chance of an opportunity due to IQ being heritable, et cetera, et cetera. If you are born from a relatively smart family, and then in turn you are gifted with intelligence. That being said, I am not a white supremacist, but I recognize that the races are different and unique, and we're being attacked, like you said, for our immutable characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And we're told we have no culture. We're told that we're, it's the list goes on. But
y'all don't put no seasoning on that ass.
Yeah, I got no seasoning on my food. I got no seasoning on it.
Yo, man.
Yes, correct.
Yo, man.
Exactly.
Chill, baby. All right. Now, like for me, white privilege would be perhaps a cop looking at me and being like, "There's a guy I don't have anything to worry about."
We're generally agreeable, dude.
Yes, you look at me, and here's a guy that's not going to bother anybody. This is a guy that isn't going to pull out his phone and start filming if some girl's getting beat up on a subway. I'm going to choke that guy out Daniel Penny style, and we're going to deal with the cops afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, like, that's my white privilege. But I also, like, when you say we notice things and there's differences and uniquenesses about the way we are, I also look at maybe a black guy that's got his pants down around his knees, with dreads that cost hundreds of dollars. I would love to know how they afford this kind of stuff. I think I have an idea, but I look at things like that, and you put up a guy like you or me, these two white boys, and you put up somebody like that right next to us and be like, which side of the street? Who are you going to trust with the keys to your house here? Okay, now. Just because I'm a white guy doesn't mean that I'm not going to rob you. But what we look like on our outside is definitely a reflection from what's inside.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It's and they've, for years in school, I was told, well, you never judge a book by its cover. And you know what? That kind of saves people's lives.
Yes.
Judging books by their covers. I mean, that's what if you flip over the cover, it actually tells you all about the book. Gives you at least a good idea.
For sure. And you know who wasn't judging a book by its cover? The gal from North Carolina.
Yeah, the Irina girl, yeah.
I wouldn't. How do you say her name again?
I do believe it's Irina, like Iryna.
Irina, okay. Because
Yeah.
I see it and that Y throws me off, but we'll call her Irina out of no disrespect if that's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. She didn't notice. Didn't seem to care. What didn't seem at all worried. But you've seen the video, have you not?
Oh my yes.
When you see something like that as a white guy, okay, that apparently is basing your judgments and your thoughts on the Bible, as you should, and you see something like that happen to our country, do you look at that as like a random thing? Or do you look at it as like a systemic problem with one particular race, or am I being racist by saying that?
I think that there is people always say, well, blacks, they commit crimes, they commit more murders, they commit more of this. You have to look at the root cause. You have to look at the root of it. And I just said, hey, races are unique in their own way. Mm-hmm. It is a lack of impulse control. So it's like, hey, I see this, I know what to do, I'm going to do it without thinking. Boom, there it goes. That guy had no thought before he just went and stabbed that young lady. Mm-hmm. And I do think in today's day and age, and not only in America, but I would say globally, that people from the African descent do have that unique problem going for them. I don't think it's irreversible. However, right. I'm not willing to wait around another millennium or two for it to take effect. So I'm going to judge the situation as it is before me, and be cautious and be aware and advocate for policies to allow that not to happen.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. I think my big fear with that is that like I love Donald Trump. Okay, I voted for Trump 3 times. Okay, I would vote for him again if he's running again in 2028. I would. I would. But I think for as strong as he is, he's also weak in a lot of issues. But his strengths, I believe, outweigh the weaknesses. However, he's not strong enough of a president, ideologically speaking, that aligns with the way what you and I are saying tonight. Because I believe Trump will give us some word salad of how they're great people, that they gave it do that whole thing, and nothing ever seems to get done. And like I've said, we can deport every last illegal that's of Hispanic descent, but then we still got to deal with a 13% problem in this country because they're here legally and they're like declaring war, apparently. Now, I've heard it said and argued that 90% of black people make the 10% of good black people look bad. When you hear something like that, what are your thoughts?
I would say flip the numbers and you got yourself a deal, dude. I'm saying now I'm not gonna say, well, 90% of them are bad.
Right.
You can't quantify that.
Right.
I look at the FBI crime statistics, and normally when they go against reality, I think, whoa, they're probably even worse than they are. If you look, and of course it's all flooded on X, if you look at some of the crimes that have been reported with the illegal migrants and blacks in inner cities, a lot of those people, we're talking, this fella's darker than a marker, but next to it says white. And then you got Jose and Miguel and Juan Julio, and it all says white, white, white.
Yeah.
So these statistics, people will be like, well, those are skewed. I would say that they are skewed more, or I should say less in favor of whites. The less they can point out this obvious problem of non-white violence in America, or non-white crime as a whole. It doesn't always have to be violent. It could be pushing drugs. It could be, you name it. Unless we can talk about this issue, it will never be solved, because if we just pretend like it doesn't exist, why is one of the good blacks out there, let's say they're part of the good 10% or whatever, why is one of the good ones out there ever going to stand up if they don't think it's an issue? They're like, those white people, they don't know what they're talking about. There will not be a change until we can start living in reality.
Yes.
That's what I think about those numbers, man.
I agree, and you're right. You can't quantify, what the percentage is. All you can do is kind of like what I do every day is I wake up, I say my prayers, I thank God, and say today's the day that the Lord has made. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. And then I turn on Twitter and start getting all pissed off all over again.
Yeah.
And I see the latest atrocity of like what happened last night, or because this past Sunday when I did Sunday Night Insights, right before I went on, it was like somebody shot up the Mormon. I'm not going to say it's a Mormon church, because church in the Greek is the Greek word ekklesia, which means a called out assembly, which of course is a connotation with Christianity, which Mormonism is not. Okay, it's not a form of it. It's a whole different thing. So I'm not going to call it a church, but their place of worship, the guy goes in and shoots it up, and that was like 10 minutes before I went live. This was after the night before in North Carolina, where there was the shooting by the boat. The guy shooting from a boat and killed a couple people. Then there was another shooting on top, and it's just one thing right after another. And of course, they're not all black people doing this. These are white shooters too. But let's look at these issues and look at these problems. And my question is, how did we fall so far that it seems that violence and death is the answer to people who they say they have mental illness, for people that have perhaps anti-white feelings towards white people and they do what they do? Where did this come from? When did it start? What do you think?
That is a deep question. I think as a Christian, I have to say, it's the further the nation strays from Christianity, the sicker we will become. But we have gone and fallen away so far that people are feeling hopeless. People are feeling isolated with and I'm not saying COVID was the start of it, but COVID definitely was a catalyst. The state enforced lockdowns, everyone's in a mask, everyone gets used to being isolated. And some people, independent people, they can make it, hey, I was fine, I just met my girlfriend, now wife at the time. But other people, they got into that state of isolation, and they weren't saying prayers before they got on Twitter, dude. They were just in the pit, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, this feeling of hopelessness, like nothing is ever going to change in their favor, instead of hey, I'm gonna do something to better myself, or I'm going to go out there in my community and make a change, even if I would think what they're doing is evil. Hey, they aren't doing that. They're saying, you know what? That's it. That Charlie Kirk guy, bam, we're gonna take him out. Hey, that Mormon church, as you don't like to call it,
That's
but
all
that
right.
Mormon church, we're gonna ram into it because pow pow pow. That's all I can do. That's going to fill this void of hopelessness, and it's an indicator in my eyes as a declining of an empire.
Mm.
Because dude, we were, and I'm not saying we aren't necessarily anymore, but we were a superpower. America was the superpower of the world. Now we're like competing for first. Okay, sometimes we're first. Well, here's Russia and China, and then is okay. Wait, are we first or is Israel first? Because I don't know who's controlling what, and so it's a lack of. It's a feeling of powerlessness and hopelessness that is just sweeping the nation.
Mm.
That's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about that word hope real quick, because
Okay.
I believe at the bottom line of what I do on YouTube, what you do on YouTube, what we're trying to accomplish here is all being done in hope that our words aren't going to return void, that the time that we spend and the thought that we spend and the work that we put into cutting videos and all this other stuff, spending our time doom scrolling on Twitter, like it's all done in the hopes that maybe somehow my life can make a difference in this world, because we're operating in hope against what seemingly is no hope. And hope is always in the future. We can't hope for what's in the past. Hope is a future, progressive looking feeling and emotion and thought based on our present faith. And our hope can only be as strong in the future, for the future, as our present strength is today. And you're telling me that we're falling away from Christianity, and the further we fall, the sicker we become. Hey, any stream has a source, and the further away that stream gets from the source, the more polluted and disgusting that water becomes, because it's further and further away from the source. It's the same thing with God, and more specifically than just God is the Lord Jesus Christ. We have a lot of Christless conservatives out there today that love their God, and they talk about their God, country, and guns, and all that. God's not the top for them at all. And I can tell you that because of the way that they choose to live. Jesus said, you will know who my disciples are by their fruit. So I look at people's fruits and not their tweets. And I see what's going on here. And we have an epidemic of Christless conservatism going on, where we're trying to do things in the name of the Lord. But the Lord's like, I don't know who you guys are. That's from my perspective. How do you feel about that?
No, that's a great way to put it, man. And that's accurate. That's accurate. And,
Right on.
as you were speaking there, I often find myself you're like, hey, you can't serve two masters. And I find myself just getting enveloped in these worldly efforts and sort of losing track of, hey, if I don't put Christ first, well, then I can't lead my family.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't put Christ first, then what's this political action going to be all about? And I do. That's exactly why I'm right there with you. That's exactly why I wanted to start my channel, was in hopes
Yes.
to make a difference, man. That's powerful.
Yes.
But it's if we lived in a truly Christian nation, would we have these problems?
We would have different problems. We would have like legalism problems, where people would be like, King James only, You know,
You
or the,
Mormons, you ain't
yeah,
Christians.
yeah. What do you mean you got air conditioning in the church? What
Yeah.
what is this, Sodom? You know,
No,
like
no guitars in church ever. Only organs.
yeah,
I see what you're saying.
you-
Pink candles, not purple. Yep.
right. Well, I wanted this other type of carpeting, not this one. I wanted cushion pews. Like we would have like legalism problems, which we have today. But and people talk about Christian nationalism, and on your Twitter handle it says that you are a Christian National Socialist. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So
correct.
Christian comes first before the National Socialist. So you're leading with faith. Okay.
I'm trying.
That's a good thing, man. And I would encourage you to continue to do that. Jesus said, if you seek, you'll find. Ask, and you will receive. Knock, and the door will be opened. Seek first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you, including blessings for our nation. So when we talk about Christian nationalism, we'll park it right there for now, okay?
Yeah, let's park it right there.
Yeah, for now. Okay, so Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism, people's fear of that, I believe, is a theocracy. Much like Israel in the Old Testament was a theocracy, where it was ruled through religion. Kind of in modern times, I guess you could say, where you have the law of the Muslims. What's that called?
Sharia law.
Sharia law. I kept wanting to say Shia or whatever, but Sharia law. So something like that, where everything is governed by the religion. And I can tell you this, I would recognize myself as a Christian nationalist, a white Christian nationalist. I don't want a theocracy as a governing authority in this country because of the inherent problems of enforcing faith. Okay? Pastors are shepherds, and pastors are the ones that look out for their flocks. Those are, I guess you could say, are more of the policemen, the leaders of Christians, okay? But then when you begin to start legislating faith, that's when people begin to oppose it and rebel against it, much like we saw in the Middle Ages, where they were trying to convert by the sword. And we saw how that worked out. It didn't work out, okay? So do you agree with that? And what would be your definition of where you stand as a Christian nationalist?
Okay, so as far as Christian nationalism, that's a good way to put it. And I just from the few videos that I saw and looking at your Twitter, I would say yes, you would fit under that umbrella of white Christian nationalist. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Hey, don't worry, guys. He's cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
But that maybe for some viewers who are new or don't know what we mean by that, that would be, for example, I think it would mean, well, hey, we're not going to force you to become Christian. No one can force you to choose Christ. It is ultimately a personal choice that you have to make. Otherwise, like you said, it's not real. We're not if faith alone is out the window with that one.
Yes.
But there may be some laws that are implemented based on the 10 commandments, like thou shalt not murder. Hey, that would include abortion, because guess what? We would be a Christian nationalist country.
Right.
We already have laws against theft. That's biblical morality.
Yes.
We mentioned murder. If we start there with the 10 commandments and expound upon them, we'll actually find that a lot of our original laws were sort of loosely based on Christian morality in a way. And we would not have the separation of church and state. I don't believe we wouldn't force you to worship. However, we probably would have Bible in school, in every school. That's just a little preview. But how I would define it is, I mean, someone who advocates for that. Me personally, and this is, I'm just going to be real with you. This is where I've kind of shifted even further rightward because I do get caught up thinking about, okay, I need to put Christ first. I'm going to do that in my personal life. But then I look at the political and I'm like, I am honestly feeling a little bit of hopelessness. And I'm like, okay, I see the way the world is turning. No matter if we have to try and have civil discourse out in public, we're getting shot for that. Whether we try to have our place of worship, we're getting shot for that. So I'm saying Christian National Socialist, I am taking that one step further and saying, okay, I have a love of my country, being a national, and I have a love of my people. There comes the socialist. Not to get confused with the modern sense of the term socialism. Like, I'm not a communist. I don't think that, you know what I mean. Everyone knows what communism is.
We wouldn't be having a conversation tonight if you were a commie.
It'd be more of a debate. I don't think that in the current makeup of America that we would ever get anyone elected who would be a true Christian nationalist.
Yeah.
And maybe I can't see the future, but I just see every year it's 50-50 split, and we got all these people who, whether they know it or not, hate Christ and hate everything he stood for. And then we have these conservatives who may not have Christ in their lives, but guess what? They align with the morality for the most part. I don't think that we would ever get that true Christian nation unless we got to a point to where we only had to have one more election, you know, and then, not that it would be a theocracy, but it would be like, okay, no more left-right paradigm, but hey, it's Christian nationalism. We're going to expound past the left and right. Sorry, all you pundits that make all this money off the American people. This is what it is, and we're going to make it work. Sort of a hard reset. I'm not advocating doing this through violence. Ideally, we all want to achieve this through political means,
of
at
course.
least on the right so far.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like the left is reciprocating that. But yeah, that's kind of where my head's at with the whole thing.
When you have a sense of hopelessness, like we were talking about earlier, then anything is possible. That's why I believe the left is so much more willing to cause violence, to go shoot people, to, burn down cities, to riot, to spray paint, to tear down, statues, to do the things that they do, because in their heart, because they hate God, because they're anti-Christ in their core, they have that sense of hopelessness, like this is all that there is and nothing else matters, and it's become their other master. You can't serve two, so the other master in this case is going to be the state or Marxism or whatever the case may be. So they are, because we have hope, and that hope is also mixed with grace, because we can forgive others. We believe in second chances. I mean, you were sharing with, if you don't mind, you were sharing with me before we went on. I'm getting ready to talk about second chances. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You shared with me that you had an issue with drugs in your life. Yes. Would you say that because of a second chance, because God got a hold of you somehow through that haze, that it was because of that second chance and that second opportunity that you took advantage of it and cleaned yourself up?
Most definitely. Yeah. You say second chance, and I kind of smiled there, because second chance, third chance, fourth chance. There was a time in my, you know what I mean. there was a time in my life. I was raised Presbyterian. Currently, I go to a Lutheran church. Anyway, let's get back to the second chance here.
Yeah.
So, raised Presbyterian. Whenever I was 16, I started really heavy into, smoking the herb. And I thought, hey, weed's not a drug, man. This is the first time I ever felt okay in my life. This is great. This is fun. A little family turmoil growing up. Some kids had it much worse than I, so I'm not going to gripe about that.
Sure.
But I found my thing. It was drugs. and one thing leads to another. You try this, you try that, you start selling this, you make some money. Um, Next thing you know, I found myself 10 years in the making, um, on Suboxone actually first before I got into heroin, which probably was just fentanyl. And man, I tried to actually end it. At the very end, I tried to OD. I bought a bunch with $200 that I stole from my own mother, and
You
I
dirtball.
drove out. Yeah, dude, I drove out somewhere, and I'm like, okay, this is it. Wham.
Wow.
And I came to on my steering wheel, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I have to make a change. And then you know, I wasn't fully sold on seeking Christ, but if anyone out there knows the 12-step program, hey guys, a little secret for you. It's just all implying that you need to follow God and be a good Christian. But they don't
100%.
say that. Yeah, dude, they talk about the feeling of powerlessness. They talk about seeking a higher power, which, you know, it's, hey, God and Christ and man. So it wasn't until I made that change that my life got exponentially better. We're talking, I had like a $500 credit score, and I was making $12 an hour whenever I got out of rehab. And now I have a house with a tiny bit of property. I have a wife. My life is exponentially better, and I would be a fool to not say that I owe that to Christ.
Amen. So
Yeah.
you went from being a din-do to a can-do.
Yeah, dude, I was a freaking din-do. Oh my gosh.
All right.
You should put that on a shirt, my man. Went from a din-do to a can-do. Dude, that's awesome.
Oh, that's funny,
That's
man.
good.
Yeah. All right. So Mr. Nuffin over here. Yeah, that's me. Right? So, you know, the reason that I brought that up, and thank you for sharing that, first of all, because I know that there's people that watch, you know, my channel that tune in on Sunday nights and other videos and stuff, and they have addictions, and they have issues, and like they're coming because they need that good word. They need to just be reassured that God loves them. And here you are sharing this, you know, that you were able to, I mean, heroin.
Oh,
I mean, come on, man.
a lot of my friends are dead, dude. Yeah.
Because that's exactly the end of it. I mean, that's when the Reaper gets you. I mean, you're a slave to it. And Jesus said you're a slave to whoever you give yourself to obey. And I mean, I've counseled and met with many drug addicts, okay? And they live their whole lives from the moment they wake up till the moment they pass out of getting that next fix. They live to serve that addiction. So to hear you've overcome it and done so well, because I even told you, like, I took a look at you. I'm like, there's no way. There's just there's no way. But I mean, because you're well spoken.
You ain't talking like this, and you know.
Yeah, I'm not
So-
like falling asleep on the mic.
I want to thank God.
You know,
Oh, dude.
it wasn't any of that. But the reason that I brought that up, because here we are talking about hope and hopelessness and why we do what we do. You're struggling a bit with hope in America. Okay. What do you think will be able to help strengthen people's hope as they look into the future? Is America going to get better? How can it get better? What are your thoughts?
Okay, I think that some of America will get better, and I think some of America will get progressively worse. So we see that this guys who, hey, I'm just being real. So a lot of people I might seem, hey, everyone, Adam's a little nicey, but I'm considered by today's standards far right. Like I want all that stuff we talked about, Christian nationalism. I want that, and I also want to end all civil rights laws. Like I think we should be able to segregate whatever. Not to get on a tangent here.
It's okay.
But so we have guys like me who are on the far right, and then we have guys that are on the far left. those numbers, I think, will grow and grow and grow. And we will also have the people in the middle that, hey, they're just, we call them online the NPCs, the non-playable characters. They go along to get along. And whether they go along with this group because they're saying, hey, we're the I call them the one world religion, because they worship the world, they worship Satan. Are we going to go along with those people who are like, oh, hey, everyone's a human, open borders, it's okay to be gay, you can love who you want to love? Or is it going to be the mean guy Adam and Mr. Coxinator here who are saying, hey, you have to have self-discipline in life, and if you actually read your Bible and you do this and you put in effort, which one's easier? Is it easier just to go live loose, fast, and die young? Or is it easier to do what I think it's more difficult the more you apply yourself. So to ask if America as a whole is going to get better, I don't think. I don't know if it'll end up being left or right, or if we'll divide upon racial lines. I mean, it's probably gonna, if something happens, then it'll probably happen very quickly all at once, whether it's people versus government versus people versus other race of people. Who are we to know? Who are we to know? All I can do is hope that, kind of in my introduction to my name, hope that I can get some of those NPCs and be like, hey, yo, you don't have to think exactly like me, but I'm going to be so far over here. Maybe I can pull you over here. And guess what? Hey, maybe I can pull some of you guys over to where Coxinator sits here with his viewpoints, and then maybe a little further, whatever. But to pull people out of that muck and that mire and that just path to hell, dude, that would be amazing for me. I don't think that I will be alive to see any meaningful change, but who knows, man? We will not know the time. We will not know the hour. Something could happen tomorrow, and boom, guess what? Stuff happens. But
that's right.
Yeah, so that's why maybe I'm hopeless. I think it's inevitably the Empire of America will fall, whether you and I are alive for it. That's up for debate. But
yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say, because I mean, all it would really take, it's kind of like what Trump said when he first got in and started making changes again. And he said, we didn't need to change the laws, we just needed to change the president. And next thing you know, things are happening. And I just believe that we need to have that strengthened resolve to do the right things, even though they're hard to do. Because like you were saying, the easiest thing in the world is to be a loser. That's the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, to be a bum, to be a lazy, shiftless loser is the easiest thing to do. But to actually achieve things in life, that takes work, that takes effort, that takes sacrifice. That means making right choices, even though they may be difficult, and saying no to the things you need to say no to, and not only saying yes to the things that are correct, but pushing that agenda of not I'm right, you're wrong, but this is good and this is bad. And half an onion is a whole bad onion.
Yeah.
So man, that's how I look at it. Now, one of the words you brought up here was in your far rightism, all right, is segregation.
Yeah.
That's a big word, man.
It is. It's a powerful word, especially in 2025.
Well,
particularly talking in past contents.
Well, sure. I mean, in our diverse, equitable,
inclusive. Don't forget inclusive.
So here we are, where that's all being pushed down our throats. Apparently, it's being rejected by a great deal amount of people. Why do you feel that segregation is a right and good thing to do?
Now, I do have to put some caveats on this.
Sure,
I do
of
not
course.
think that sort of like how back in the civil rights era we were forced to integrate at gunpoint at some of those schools, etc. I do not think we should be forced to segregate at gunpoint. I'm saying and I'm suggesting that if we want to legally have an all-white community in wherever USA, that we should be able to have zoning laws and do that if we want to. And you know what? If you don't want to move there because, hey, that sounds racist to me, I'm not saying you have to.
Exactly.
Same with an all-black community. Could you imagine? I mean, they've done it before. They have all-black little communes, and then they have
It's
down
called
in Georgia.
It's called prison.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the projects, but all right. You have you have black communities. I think they had one in Georgia that failed, and I ain't talking about the Atlanta casino.
Right.
But then they have Return to the Land with Eric. I think his real name's Eric Orwell, but he goes by Arvol on Twitter. He has one that's starting out Midwest, and then he has another one that's going to be forming in Idaho. So there are legal frameworks available now if you kind of do it off grid. But I'm talking about like in suburban America.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, here it comes. If you want to have an all-black neighborhood, you can. If you want to have an all-white neighborhood, you can. You just have to sign a paper and you're good to go. And then from here on, that's all the people that can live there. And the reason why I push for that, it's not because it doesn't come from a hatred of other people.
Mm-hmm.
But just from my life experience, I think that people of other races tend to coalesce and get along with and behave better with themselves, whites included. It breeds accountability between the individuals in that community. It gives a sense of belonging. They don't feel like an outcast. There's been times in my past life, if you could imagine, that where I've went somewhere and I'm the only white guy in the room. It wasn't a hostile situation, thank goodness. However, I did feel very out of place. I felt like some of the jokes that I would say, well, they weren't landing. You know what I mean, dude? But I could imagine that that's how a black would feel going to an all-white school or going to this. So why have that feeling of isolation where we could have that sense of community? And guess what? Hey, we all go work at the factory at the same place. I think that that would breed a better society, that would give a good baseline for us to reach. But forcing segregation at gunpoint,
Yeah.
while that does sound very National Socialist to do, if you believe those old history books, in today's modern society, we would have to apply it to the modern world. We are not barbarians, nor do we want to act like them. We as a larger we, I would say other National Socialists who identify as Christian as I do, we want political change. We don't want the whack jobs who are going to go shoot their version of Charlie Kirk. We want to have meaningful political change, whether that means on a national scale or whether that means, hey, Pennsylvania and Ohio, and guess what, Indiana, we're going to secede from the nation, but we're our own state now. I know Texas has talked about seceding for other reasons before. So it's complicated and very nuanced and very, I don't want to say utopian, but there's so many different levels to it.
Yeah.
Different possible outcomes. But right now we're like at the ground floor.
Yeah, we are. And when you think about that, when you think about segregation, when you think about secession, you know, you talk about Texas and everything. I mean, you harken back to the Civil War times, and of course the states that seceded, and you think like, man, they were based like there isn't a state in the Union today that would do that, and when they do, it's always laughed off, and it never seems it might get some traction, it might get a few signatures, and then it fizzles out. But to actually have a state that says, no, we don't want to be part of this collective anymore. We want to do our own things. I'm often reminded of the writings of Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson when they talked about the pride that they felt fighting for Virginia. They weren't fighting for the South. They weren't fighting for the United States of America. They were fighting for their home state. And because today we don't view our states as our own little countries like they did. You know, it's different in Virginia than it was in New York, you know, and we like it here in Virginia. So much so, I'm going to leave the Union Army and be the general of the Confederate Army and fight back against them because they're coming against our way of life and the way that we choose to live. Now, regardless of what you feel about with the North or the South, anyone watching this, that's the facts. That's what they look at. That's why in the South they view it as the war of northern aggression, because they were trying to impose federal laws and federal thoughts into a simple collective of states that had shared values, and they're like, we're not having any of it, and it caused the bloodiest war in American history. We hear a lot about Civil War today. Does anyone even understand what that is? Do you think about that? I mean, have you thought about this?
So I've been thinking about, and I think a lot of Americans, like you touched on, have been thinking about that heavily ever since the Charlie Kirk thing. There was a boom, huge split there for a few weeks. And I think it is kind of calming down in the mainstream a little bit. Guys on the far right and far left are probably still feeling the rippling effects of that. But I've been thinking about Civil War a lot recently. Not like, hey, I'm going to go do something, but so back then, muskets and sidearms and bayonets, okay, that was brutal. Like you said, that was just some of the bloodiest war you ever seen. They were fighting for their homeland, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That was an intense battle. Today, we have drones you can attach bombs to. We have high-powered rifles, and I'm not going to say assault rifles. Everyone is if you have enough gumption. But you have all kinds of firearms. You have all kinds of technological devices. You have different technology that you can turn into weapons. I'm sure that someone, if the Israelis can do it to the cell phones, you could probably turn one of them into, a terroristic weapon. There would be so much bloodshed and loss of life. It would be a tragedy. And I think that's what's keeping a lot of people from speaking up, because, well, hey, I just want to go along to get along. I never want that to happen, you know, have that pacifist mindset. But unless we advocate and speak up now, I think that's going to be the inevitable outcome. Who knows how the lines will be divided, but it would be, holy moly, dude. And I don't know about you, it would be very difficult to do, but I don't know if every guy on Twitter who says things like you and me would be willing to get up off their couch and, you know, grab their hunting rifle and defend their family if it came down to it. Or would they just be like, whoa, hey, go ahead, take all my stuff. Like we wouldn't know until we get to that position, but it's definitely thinking about that, how it would work out it's almost surreal to even, like, hey, this is possible. Yeah. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure you've thought about it.
Of course. I mean, with Civil War, I mean, first of all, yes, the South formed its own confederacy, had its own form of constitution. So it was an established government that the South had. However, it was genuinely made up of people, just the people that lived there. Okay, whereas they were fighting the federal government, okay, the United States government. So when people talk about Civil War, I'm always like, well, I'm not fighting the federal government, okay?
Freaking Apache helicopter coming to the Coxinator residence.
Exactly. Okay, like, I mean, I'm not fighting the federal government. We're not going to war against the federal government. The Civil War that people are talking about is against some blue-haired lesbian, okay, and who's pushing trans rights, you know, and pushing, you know, trans. How does Trump put it? Transgender for everybody, okay? Yeah. Like pushing that, all right, against us who are like, no, you're all crazy, you're nuts, and like that, it's been a dialogue. It's been like gotchas on Twitter and things like that. That's been the war. But now that blood is being shed, like now it's real. And it is people versus people. It's not people against the government. And this is the implosion and the invasion that's taken place in our country. That's what it is. It's people in our country against one another. And in a country with a Second Amendment that was put in place to protect us from the overreaches of government. And now, I'll tell you what, man, since I've moved to where I live now, I lived in Arizona. Okay, we had a high Hispanic population there, okay? We go out all the time, never had issues, never had problems, okay? Didn't even think about it too much, really, because it just is what it is. You're close to the border, this is what's going to be happening, all right? But we never had any issues, no problems. Not that there weren't any out there, but we just never came across it. Since we moved to where we're at now, okay, and we've had interactions with, let's say, the African Americans, okay, where there weren't that many in Phoenix. It was the first time in our 20 years of marriage that my wife has told me that she's afraid of going out to places. Okay? First time ever. Okay? I have my daughter and my grandson who are with her, okay? Well, we're carrying now when we go out, okay? Because it is an open carry state. We're working on getting our concealed weapons permit, okay? Because I think about civil war. And I think I'm not hurting anybody, but somebody could very well hurt me, and I'm not going to be a sitting duck.
Yeah.
I mean,
dude,
yeah, go.
That's something else that I've been advocating for, and it's been on a couple episodes I've produced, but in my personal life especially, we are not the people to go out there, and I keep harping on it, but we're not the people to go out there and shoot their version of Charlie Kirk, or we're not out there blowing up mosques, etc., etc. But we need to now more than ever take that defensive, protective stance, because if we, first and foremost, we have to defend our loved ones. And if that means, hey, I got to carry when I go to freaking Applebee's, what the heck? So if that's what it takes, hey, so be it. And I don't want to live in this dystopian world either. However, if you are not taking steps in your personal life out there, guys, to protect yourselves, then you're not going to make it if something does pop off. What if, okay, you're carrying to Applebee's. Let's say you're sitting down to your boneless wing appetizer, and next thing you know, you hear shots going off in the parking lot. You and your grandkids, you're hitting the dirt. What are you going to do? Throw a freaking buffalo wing at the guy? You got to, you know what I mean? You guys got to think 3-4 steps ahead.
Yes.
I try not to get paranoid, but you know what they say, never relax.
Yes.
Never relax. You always got to be aware that, hey, I could have to defend myself at any time. That's the stance that I like to present and get people thinking about, because surprisingly, man, not everyone already thinks like that. Probably a lot of guys that watch you or me, they're already thinking like that.
Sure.
But maybe some of the new viewers, dude, it is crazy. All those NPCs I was talking about, a lot of them are not thinking in this frame of, hey, I should protect myself.
Right.
It's wild, dude.
Yeah, because I think their mentality is, well, I'm not bothering anybody. I'm not causing any problems. I'm not going to do any harm to anybody. Why would somebody harm me? And I think genuinely that's how a lot of Americans think, in that, you know, they wake up in the morning, they get ready, they go to work, they go to a job they might hate, they might love, but they go to their job, they come home, they got to get dinner ready, or they go out to dinner, they got to get the kids to practice, they got to make sure the kids are all showered, and it's this cycle of stuff to do all the time. They're never thinking about causing any harm to anyone, for God's sakes. And because I'm not bothering anybody, why would anybody bother me? But we're living in that time now where it doesn't matter. Like, they're going to bother you, just like we started out this conversation, just based on what you look like. And
Yes.
and I'm not a sucker in that way that's going to put myself in a bad situation, in a bad place around bad people without being completely prepared and give myself a fighting chance to get the heck out of there. Man, we've been here for a bit now. It's flown by. I can't believe it.
It really has.
I like I said, I had 10 questions and I haven't even
Did you
gotten
ask
to
all
one
of
of them. I haven't got to one.
Oh my gosh.
This has been just the flow of the conversation. So maybe I'll just.
Good.
Yes, it has, man. And I want to do it again with you because I think we have a lot more to talk about.
Oh yeah, you and I have a good dynamic too.
Yeah, we do. I'm a little better looking than you are, but that's.
Oh, okay, I see how it is, old man.
Yeah. All right. You had to go there, didn't you, Sonny? All right. All right. So let me pick out one question of these, and we'll wrap up with this one. How do you, as a National Socialist, distinguish your beliefs from the historical National Socialism of the 1930s and 40s, if at all?
That is a great question. The distinguishment that I would put on my beliefs is that, and you guys can find this on archive.org. I don't know if you're even allowed to post that link on YouTube. But
probably not.
Probably not. But if you look at the 25 points of the NSDAP, they're all pretty mundane. It's just the implementation of them. And I do need to get better, more well-read, so I could recite them. Since I'm going to talk the talk, I might as well be able to walk the walk. But I think the distinction would be the implementation of the policies, and they wouldn't all be the same. Some of them, I think 2 or 3 of them would be irrelevant in today's modern age. I do think that race is real, and we are a racial movement. We do believe that race is real. It doesn't mean that we are superior over others. It just means, hey, I recognize, Germany for the Germans, Britain for the British, America for the Americans. Makes sense to me. I do believe that there are foreign influences into our nation that are causing that rift, causing that divide, causing us to be afraid when we go to Applebee's, causing us to, live in this debt slavery continuously. And that's why I kind of have pushed past that, just like, hey, I'm a nationalist, to, hey, I'm a National Socialist. Not only does it fascinate me, like I'm fascinated by World War II history and history revisionism and hearing both sides of the story. But what really sold me was that it is the only thing throughout history that has actually defeated communism in its own nation. Mm-hmm. And I do want to defeat communism. We talked about secession from the country. If we did have 1, 2, 3, however many states that seceded from the U.S., that would be, hey, no more communism. Hey, no more elections. This is a National Socialist Party. Love of nation, putting the people of the nation before yourself. We're working for the greater good together in harmony. Just to touch on, to end your viewers here, people always say, oh, what about gun rights? I want to have my guns. The Nazis, they took guns away. Guys, that's not true. So they actually took guns away from non-citizens. So if you were Jewish, or if you were black, or if you were something other than German, they did confiscate your weapons. You pretty much lost all rights unless you held to that racial standard. Now, this is where it gets nuanced, and we would have to adapt this to the modern age. Do we live in an all German society? Well, no. Do we live in an all whatever ethnicity, I should say? No, but we all kind of recognize what it means to be white. And that's why I guess maybe proud to be white. I say proud to be white. This is the touch on what we talked about way earlier.
Yep.
When I say proud to be white, I mean that I am I feel like I am blessed and thankful for the body that God's given me. I do believe that if this same soul of mine was put into a black guy's body, that my voice might be a little deeper, but I would have that same pride in who I am. We are all born unique, so we need to become the best versions of ourselves that we can be. So I said a whole lot of stuff, but I hope that came across. Do you have any questions regarding that?
Well, I mean, of course,
Yeah, you could pick it apart or
the biggest question of it all, okay, and that's the reason I put it the way that I did, like distinguish it from the 30s or 40s, because of course I was talking about the guy, okay,
Oh, yeah.
the guy, yes, okay,
Yeah,
so
Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie,
Anyway.
yeah, right, so or Mo, okay, when he played him,
Yeah.
okay, that's of course what people think, and of course, to the majority of people in the world, he is Satan incarnate, and he was the most evil and heinous person in the whole world. Don't get me wrong, Coxinator Productions viewers. I am not arguing on behalf of him, okay? I'm just saying that this is the perception of the majority of the world. How do you feel about that guy?
About Uncle H.
Yes.
So if you here's a perfect example for some of your viewers. You said you were a Trump guy. Here's a perfect example. You'll hear all these lefties. They say, you know what, that Trump, he's just like, I don't know if we want to even say it on your channel.
We know.
Which is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we
that
can.
Trump guy, he's just like that one painter from Austria. He's just like him. And we're sitting here and we're all thinking, no, he's not. What the heck? Well, that's because he loved his nation. He advocated for mass deportations. And he wanted to fix his country socially, not just economically, but socially. And I would argue that Trump, he's not going far enough because he's hitting roadblocks, and I wish that he could just reign supreme and he could get things done, but that's not reality.
Right.
So I think that Austrian painter, I think that he loved his country. There was never meant to be an intentional genocide of the Jewish people. If you listen to the other side of the story, there's always his side, her side, and the truth. These were meant, we were going to round them up and ship them out. They actually accused the leader of being too soft because he was working with Zionists in, now Israel today, as we know, it wasn't formed until 1948, but he was working with Zionists to move these people to their homeland, to move them back to the Holy Land as a remigration program. The rest of the world hated that because they said, well, hey, all my cousins in New York, hey, please write some sympathy propaganda. We got to stop this. We don't want to lose our income here in Europe. We don't want to go back to the desert. This sucks. So then the whole world got mad at Germany for loving their nation and loving their people and doing what I was talking about doing in a secession of a state.
Mm-hmm.
So then guess what? Here comes the war. Well, during wartime, who are you going to take care of? Your people or your prisoners? So eventually people died of typhus, so on and so forth. It's interesting just to research, let alone, I do not idolize the man. I do think he was a great and earnest leader. Do I think he did things wrong? Oh, most definitely. Do I think that he was led by Christ? I do not think that he put Christ first in his thoughts and his actions in doing everything. And he also had other people in his party influencing him that definitely didn't have Christ in their lives. So you look at it and it's one of the most cataclysmic events in history, no matter what side you're on. Mm-hmm. So it's a very, very deep and interesting topic. But yeah, I think he loved his country. He loved his nation. And if you listen to his translated speeches, he kind of does sound a lot like Trump, dude.
Let me tell you what, man. I
Yeah.
played one for Mrs. Coxinator. You know,
Oh, okay.
I did. And I've heard a couple of them myself. You know, so I had to kind of play it a few times before I present it to her, because
Of course.
her reaction. Like, if I came up to my wife, okay, and I think I speak for a lot of people out here, okay.
Oh,
If you go up to your wife and be like, honey, I want you to listen to Schickelgruber here and to see how much sense he makes, she's gonna be like, what? You know, what are you talking about? Are you a madman? Have you lost your mind? Like that. So I had to familiarize myself a bit with the things that he was saying. Okay. And the last one I listened to, I believe it wasn't a speech, but it was a translation from his book, where he talked about, and it was like a 4-minute video of his experience with the Jews and how he came to understand. And you know what, man? Growing up, I had a Jewish uncle. Okay, his last name was Silverstein. Okay, this guy made Woody Allen look like a Gentile. Okay, he was so.
Okay.
I mean, this guy was Jewish. But matter of fact, I was the ring bearer at their wedding, and there's a picture of me with a yarmulke on as a kid at a Jewish wedding. Yeah, as my mother's sister married this guy. Okay, loved him. He was always friendly, just a great guy. So he was the only Jew I knew. Okay, I was related to him, and so I grew up and never had any kind of anything. Like, I never even thought about it. You know, I wasn't religious at the time, so I'm not thinking about Israel, and I'm not thinking about Jews because I never deal with them. And I was like, oh my God, my life is very eerily similar here to this guy. And then I listened to how he began to form what he believed, you know?
Yes.
And
how we grew through a struggle, yes.
And it is a struggle. It's a definite struggle. I am right now struggling with that because I do put Christ first. Mm-hmm. And what matters to me is the truth. And if it's not true, then it's not of God. But if it's true, Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He is the source of truth. Okay? 2 + 2 = 4 might be a math problem, but it's true because of Jesus. As odd as that may sound, he is the source and giver of truth. So if something is true, it's godly. Okay? And I'm trying to determine where I stand with all that. Not that I think too much of it, okay?
Yeah.
But because now we're seeing this rise of what they would call anti-Semitism, and then I see the ADL saying that Christian identity is a hate group, and like you're a hateful, racist, homophobic, whatever, if you find your identity in, Christianity, and I see who's running the ADL, and I'm like,
and we don't have to delve too far into this, but how I like to explain it to people is that Judaism is the antithesis to Christianity. A lot of the stuff that we talked about tonight was the rejection of Christ. And in their whole, that's their whole thing. You can see Ben Shapiro talking about it is, well, hey, they don't accept Christ as the Messiah. And that is an integral part of Christianity. So that divide right there, that's what separates us on a religious scale. But then I think, as we've stated time and time again, everything else trickles down from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we'll let the audience digest that. I don't know how deep we want to get into that topic.
if I keep digging, my back's gonna hurt. Okay.
Oh yeah, man. I'd be down 100% to do this again with you, my man. This is good conversation.
It is, and I hope that because we can measure people's attention spans in nanoseconds, that they see a long form video like this one's going to be, and don't get bored with it, but get engaged the way that we were. Perhaps you've out there watching this have shared these same type of thoughts. Maybe you're having struggles. Maybe you're having addictions. Maybe you're hopeless. But, whatever the case is, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. If you could sum it up and put a little bow tie on it and put it under the Christmas tree today, what's your final words, man?
My final words for the conversation of tonight is to love Christ, love your family, and start learning to love yourselves, guys. Where you don't need to, if you put Christ first, all this stuff will come into line in your life, and that's just the way to live. Politically speaking, hey, come be a National Socialist with me. It's super fun over here. Yeah. I'll tell you all the ins and outs. My DMs are always open on X. That's how me and Coxinator got a hold of each other and actually started talking back and forth. I didn't know what this guy was going to talk about tonight, but I am so glad that I said yes to this interview. It was a great time. You and I actually agreed a little more on subjects than I thought we would, which was very refreshing. And I don't know if that was reciprocal or not, but yeah, dude, that was a good time. And I hope your viewers and the viewers that I'm going to send over here, I hope we all enjoyed it.
Well, certainly I did. I mean, the time flew, and I've had interviews that just drug on and on and on. And I couldn't wait to get out of them, because people either weren't giving or just our personalities weren't clicking or whatever. But yeah, man, I was feeling it tonight with you. We did agree with a lot of things. That's, to me though, that wasn't surprising. Just I had a good vibe. I just know that when you get to the Christian nationalist part, dude. Total bro. When it gets to the Christian National Socialist part, that's where the rubber hits the road for me.
Okay.
And that's where, hey, instead of being like, oh yeah, well you're a Nazi, yeah, you're a white supremacist, and you're wrong. No. We dialogue. Men dialogue with one another. Men can disagree about things, shake hands, and go out and have a beer together. And thank God that we're Americans. Come on and say a good amen. So,
amen.
Right. So, I mean, that's how I feel. Democrats and Republicans used to be that way. We could argue all day, live long day about whatever the case is. And at the end of the day, shake hands and be friends and be thankful that we live in the greatest country on God's green earth. So where can we find you online? How can people get in touch with you? How can they subscribe to you?
I am trying to grow my YouTube channel. Go to my page and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell and make sure you got all the notifications on. If you want to reach out to me directly, my DMs are open on X. You can find me. I will leave the link to Mr. Coxinator here. All my links will be down in the description. If I get banned off of YouTube, just go find me on Rumble. Rumble's a good platform. It's a growing platform. But that's all I got right now. Okay. I'm on all the Spotify, the Apple Podcasts, every audio platform you can find me. It's pretty cool. I got the RSS feed going. So
you're way ahead of me, young man. I just do the YouTube and I get on the Twitter on the World Wide Web.
On the World Wide Web. Yeah.
I'm an old guy, but I do that. But you know what? It's caught on, and I got 9,000 subscribers somehow. People seem to like it, and it's because it's genuine, and real recognizes real. And I can even recognize real if you're wrong, because at least you're being real about it, right? But real recognizes real, and I think you're the real deal, man. So I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad to be here.
We'll hook it up and do it again, all right? I'll be in your DMs.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds good, man.
God bless, and have a great night, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.
Later.
Exactly, no!
Thank you for watching Coxinator Productions, quite possibly the greatest YouTube channel in the world. Make sure to like and subscribe for more of this content.